Hey, welcome back to Nick Pick Locks. Tonight I have a Sargent LFIC. We already have it gutted and taken apart here. What makes these different from other SFICs or LFICs is that unlike having multiple shear lines with each of the pin stacks having multiple drivers, only 3 and 4 have the additional drivers in there for the shear line to move this sleeve. Now the sleeve can only move in one direction. So if we're looking at it, with that sleeve turned out here, we can get it to focus somewhat. The sleeve cannot rotate any further clockwise than it already is. So if we want to pick it to control, we have to pick counterclockwise with this configuration. Now, if we're trying to pick it to operating, direction doesn't necessarily matter, but I find it easiest to go the direction of the control arm sleeve. Whatever side that is sticking out on, that's the direction I'm going to pick when I'm trying to find the operating shear line. And if I want to find the control shear line, I'll pick in the other direction. So on this one, it's counterclockwise. But because of how they are set up, you can swap it, have it be on the other side. So get that in there. So if I had my lock with it on this side to pick to operating, I'm going to go counterclockwise. To pick to control, I'm going to go clockwise. So that's just something to keep in mind with it. And unless it's mastered, only 3 and 4 will have the extra drivers in there. Is it not going to focus? There we go. So we can see that only stacks 3 and 4, this is 1, this is 6, have those extra drivers. When you're gutting it and taking it apart, if you have a key, it is important to remember the order of those drivers for the shear line, but you can always pin up the core plug and then use the key to make sure you have the shear lines correct for operating and for control. To do that, all you would do is take your lock with only the sleeve. You only need to pin 3 and 4 to do it. So you would pin up 3 and 4, add the drivers in there, put in your, say, operating key, and make sure the lock spins. Or put in the control key and make sure everything raises up to the top of this. But they're pretty interesting lock. They're fun. It's Sargent. Sargent has really good tolerances on all of their locks. So that makes things nice and fun. Now, I do not have a key for this lock, so operating and control shear line don't mean a thing to me in terms of how we repin it, but we'll get it pinned up. We'll get it put in the vise, and we'll get it picked open. Oh, that's because that's 4, not 3. 2 and 6. There we go. So we'll get this put in the vise, we'll get it picked open, and see what we can do. We'll probably go operating first, and then we'll pick it to control after that. All right, see you all in a second. Okay, slight change of plan. I think I'm going to do control first, and then we'll do operating second, because that makes the most sense with gutting it. So we'll go in, because I have my arm here on this side where it protrudes. I'll be picking counterclockwise for the control shear line. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get under it. Here we go. 6. Here we go. All right, let's see, 5. Let's come back. 1, 2. I gotta click on 2, 3, 4. All right, we'll click on 4, 5. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we get 5. 1. There we go. 2. Oh, 3 is binding hard. There we go. All right, so we can see that that is now picked to control. See, it's kind of flush on this side. I didn't mean to do that, but sits kind of flush on this side. And doesn't protrude there on the right. So in order to, you can hold this, you can just move this one. And because those pins are inside of the top of the sleeve here, it'll reset the whole lock, or you can turn the cord. Either way, it works fine, but do that. Boom. Okay. We'll get this put in the vise a second time, and we will pick it to operating. Let's go clockwise and try to get this thing to operating. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 5. May need a shorter hook. Try to get under some of these. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 4. One, 2, 3. Hey, there's no way. All right, 4, 5. Try to get under 6. All right. 1. There we go. A little core movement. 2 feels good. 3. If we can get under. There we go. 3. Click. 4. 5. 6. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. I think 4 is binding. Click on there. Next 1, 2. 3. There we go. Let's get back under here. There we go. All right. We'll go with this one. I do not have a key for this particular lock, so yeah, we'll shim. I really get a shim in there. Okay, I'll tell you what, we'll do it like this. So you can gut a lock without shimming it or using a follower. If you rotate it fully, you'll see it'll lock, not rotate anymore. Your driver pins drop into the bottom of the keyway, and now your core acts as a follower. So push that out. We'll go with 6. 5, 4, 3, 2. Yep, cool. Now, 5. Now 3 and 4 will have 2 sets of drivers. So make sure we put these in the correct spots. All right, here, let's go ahead and get, oh shit, didn't even drop those. And that. And that one. There we go. Because, yeah, that's right. As soon as we pull out pin 3, the ring here that makes this a interchangeable core is going to be able to fall out. So let me cover that. Trying to get this spring out. Well, I'll just do that. There we go. All right, get 2 and 1. There's your springs. Cool. Let's take a look at pins here. Everything's standard. Let's make this all pretty. There we go. There. So, we'll just let them all fall down. So we can see that only 3 and 4 are the only pins with the second set of drivers for the. Thanks, guys, for watching. That's the Sargent LFIC core. It's different than all the others, or your standard LFIC and SFIC that you usually pick, because only 3 and 4 affect the operating or control shear lines for picking it, and having it only affected by those 2 stacks, as well as the limiting ability of that to move, kind of helps it to where you can choose the shear line you're going for based off of your tension direction, based on what side this is on. So if it's protruding on the right, counterclockwise will give us the control shear line, clockwise will give us the operating line, and then vice versa. So if it's sticking out on the left, then clockwise gives us the control and counterclockwise would give us operating. Because it's just those 2 pins that matter. If you take a look at the key, because this one is keyless, so I can't really show you, but if you only have one key or the other, so say you get a lock and it only has an operating key, you can look at that, and based off of what the cuts are on 3 and 4, that can give you an educated guess on what the control shear line would be for those pins. Because 1, 2, 5, and 6 aren't going to change between those keys. So if they're really low cuts, odds are it's going to be a high cut. I'm sorry, if they're really low cuts for low lift pins, odds are you're going to have to lift those pins higher for the opposite shear line. And then vice versa, if you look at the key and it is really high lifts or small cuts into the key on 3 and 4, then it's probably going to be a lower lift pin for the shear line that you don't have a key for. So you can use that to kind of figure out where you want to go from there. Sargent locks are just good in general anyway, though, with the tight tolerances they have. So they're good to practice with and work on. Get an idea for the feeling and jiggle test and pin states. But being all standard, other than the shear line for the operating and control, there's not a whole lot of added difficulty with the Sargent FSIC compared to a standard Sargent lock. So, hey, future Nickvid here. Recording that outro and everything, I kept feeling like there was something I was forgetting that I was going to talk about, planned on talking about, but could not think of what it was. And now I remembered. So when you are putting this lock in your vise, however it works, if you noticed that in this in this video, I had it down here, and that was for a specific reason and purpose. If I have it up here and try to tension it like this, or if I have it in the vise like normal, we normally would. Like the jaws on the vise are going to be pushing on this and binding it. We can also push in these two sides of the core, which will bind up to the plug and not allow it to turn. And then depending on which direction you're going, it may not move that much once it is picked to that shear line. So if I'm going to the clockwise direction to pick it to the operating line, it should work fine. But with that core plug binding with this copper ring control arm, it may not turn at all, or it'll bind up, and you won't be able to tension the lock either, depending on how it's in there. So I've got it in. Whoop. I got this one. So you can see that their core is not moving with tension. Go up top. It's not wanting to, it takes a lot of force to really get that to move, and it's not much. If I loosen it, I can get more play with the core. So that's something to be mindful of when you have the lock in the vise, and that could be giving you trouble. You could feel like there's nothing's binding and you're having to use super, super heavy tension, but it could just be the jaws are too tight on the lock itself, preventing it from moving and turning. And then depending on how you have it in there, if you're like, well, I don't want to do that, so I want to go here. Well, now I'm blocking that arm from turning and coming out. So just be mindful of how the lock's in your vise. I have issues with that sometimes too. Like this one, the cam arm here on the back is hitting the side when I picked it. So I actually picked this twice. You'll see that in the video, or you see that in the video with this lock. And I've done it with many other mortises as well. All right, go back to the regular outro. So, but that's the lock. Hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. Nobody told you, you matter, you're important, and I'm glad you're here. Y'all have a good one.